Hey everybody, welcome to Destiny Has No Secrets, a Legend of the Five Rings podcast, where we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be going over the news dump or that we received about the conflict phase, and we're going to be going over a strategy segment. I'm going to be attempting a strategy segment on going first. So you're noticing probably something different if you're watching this on stream or on a video, as opposed to last week or the weeks previous. I'm actually showing you my face. Hey, this is me. If you're listening this on audio, well, hi. But so I've managed to clear out a little space in my garage. So I apologize for all the junk behind me, but it's probably the best it's going to be for right now. You're gonna also, next week I'll be trying to improve and getting a little bit better space for us, but we'll be talking about that. So we're gonna this week we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be going over the news dump and the strategy segment. First, I'm gonna go over some cast updates, and if you stick around on the stream, we'll be going into a post show where basically we just chit chat or whatever. So okay, today cast updates. I have videos uploaded. I've broken down videos from the last episode and posted on YouTube, so people can watch in smaller segments. If they just want to know about the previews, they could know about the previews. If they want to know about the main topic or the discussion, they can do that, and that will be done every week. It's fairly simple to do and quick and easy. I just had to learn how to do it. That's the only reason why it took me so long. I've also posted the old episodes from my personal channel over to the L5R Destiny Cast YouTube channel, so you could check those out. I will, if I have enough time, I'll go through and break them down. The first episode 0, the first time I streamed, started doing this, it wasn't really broken down into segments, so it's just going to be kind of left at whatever time it was. I think it was like 40 minutes. I might just chop off the Q&A after that, so people can watch it on YouTube if they want to do that. I'll also be trying this week to do a audio, because you've been last week I said I was going to try to make audio or post the audio recording that I'm recording off of this onto SoundCloud or something. I haven't gotten. I had a kind of a weird week this week, so I didn't really quite get around to that. But I'll be posting last week's episode and this week's episode on SoundCloud this week. It's one of my big priorities for this week. So the other big update slash thing is I'm still looking for a co-host. I kind of reached out to a couple people that I may know, not in private messages, and they haven't. There hasn't been any response back yet. So still waiting. What I'm thinking about doing for right now is until I find a co-host or a person who wants to come on here, I'm going to try to do panel segments for when we go into the clan previews. There more likely will be clan previews where they'll break down each clan individually going from here to Gen Con, and try to invite a person who plays that clan and talk about why they play that clan and so forth, and maybe their thoughts on maybe the article and that sort of thing. So we'll try doing that, and then afterwards we'll have to play it by ear. I really would like to have another person to talk to, so you guys aren't just hearing me vamp for an hour and a half or whatever. But that's where we're at right now. So anyway, getting on with it, we have the new article Bonsai this week, going over the conflict, going in through a conflict. This article, we didn't really learn a whole lot of new things, but we did learn a couple new things that we can go over. I'm also trying this out instead of by the way, I'm trying this method out and just showing you instead of doing an entire outline. I figure it's a little bit, at least a little bit more interesting. So the article is fairly straightforward. It has a dragon player versus a phoenix player, and there's, it walks us through one conflict example. Well, amongst the number of new things that we learn is that there is an action window going into between the conflicts. I'm assuming that means between each conflict there's an action window where players get to play actions back and forth, which is interesting. It was interesting because we were wondering, well, at least I was wondering, whether or not pacifism, the Phoenix card, which we'll cover here in a little bit, when what timing when that would be played. So actions can be played to prevent characters going into conflict and doing those sorts of things, or maybe readying them for another conflict. Uh, but as far as who gets first action in the conflict, which is another new thing that we learned, is that there's no action window once you declare the conflict. There's no action window in between the announcement of the conflict and when the first defender takes first action. So there's no chance, unless it's a forced reaction, I'm assuming, to take an action beforehand. So they have an example in this where the Phoenix player gets attacked by the Dragon player here, and they flip over their province card. So the way it works is you announce your conflict, you announce who's going to attack in your conflict and what ring, and I'm assuming that's all in one step. There's no delineation. It's just this all at once type of thing, which makes me wonder if they're going to have any triggers off of those when you claim a ring, or I would imagine they would. How how timing works in that instance is a little unknown to me. But so they get attacked and they flip over the province before the action window of the first defending player during the conflict. And the Elemental Fury, the card here that they show us, where is it? There's a card here. All right, so the card here is a province card, and it gives us 4 province strength, and has a reaction after this province is revealed. Switch the contested ring with an unclaimed ring. That's and so they do that to switch it to from fire, yeah, to the fire ring, so they can trigger Isawa Masahiro's ability. But that tells us that like only forced reactions are going to happen before the defender gets first action, which is kind of a big deal actually. Who gets first action in battle has always been a big. I mean, the entire clan, the Mantis clan in the old CCG, had a naval ability which allowed them to go first, and that was a big deal, right? In this, it's unknown whether or not they'll actually going to have a sneak attack or a first preemptive action type effect yet. We haven't seen anything like that. I would assume they would add something like that, but it still means that that sort of effect is going to be a big deal, which I like and I don't like. I like it because I liked including those effects. I liked naval. I liked having sneak attack. I don't like it because a sneak attack like effect, if it's in a card form like an event, is going to be like an auto-clued in every single military deck, which is kind of boring, really, to be honest with you. It's there's a lot more interesting things you can do to gain. I really wish they would have tied it to having initiative to a core mechanic or something like that, so you didn't just have to and use that space when you have the first action, do X effect or something like that. I think that would have been a little bit more interesting, but in the end, it's okay. We can deal with it. Defender getting first action is fair. It's okay. It factors in when you're going to attack, which we'll talk about in our strategy segment going into a little bit more. Uh, Going on though, we see a couple of new card types. We see the Honored card. So we get a glimpse into the actual effect that Honored. Now we were told in the previous articles that Honored and Dishonored status were would gain you or lose you honor. We didn't exactly know, and we know here by the Honored card that when the personality dies, you gain 1 honor, right? And so we actually see the effect that it is a card, but we also do learn that it is a status. There's steps to it, so every character comes out is not considered honored. They actually have to achieve that effect or play an effect and place the honored on the person Also, if they're dishonored, because during this combat they dishonor them by playing an event card, shame, I believe is the name of the event card here. Some of these new cards are a little unknown to me. Yeah, for shame. So for shame, they play on an honored personality during this conflict, and the honored goes from honored to just normal, like, and presumably that would go from normal to dishonored if there was, or I would also think it would work the other way. So if you're dishonored and you become honored, you just become normal maybe. They don't tell us that for specific, but it's pretty easy to assume. So once the conflict begins, the and any sort of force reactions are played from the provinces are flipped. So you announce your attack, you announce your ring, you attack, the defender flips the province, and then resolves the effect, like in the case of this elemental fury, and then they get the first action, and then from there it goes back and forth, right, until one person passes, and then or until both players pass, and then you count force. Whoever wins wins. Whoever loses loses. Everybody's bowed, and if you won in by enough skill, military political skill, equal to over their 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 army's total combined skill. I'm assuming this word is skill. I'm used to saying force, but the total of the army plus the province. If you win by that much, then you break the province. So, and attackers win ties, which I think we learned in this article too, if I'm not mistaken. Attackers winning ties. Other than that, they show us a bunch of card effects. They show us a new card effect, which had people talking. Cloud the Mind. So, Cloud the Mind is a spell, and in here it's an attachment. It's a 1 fate cost neutral attachment that provides 0 military, 0 political. Has the spell and air traits, and says play only if you control a Shikenja character. Treat attached character as if its printed text box were blank. And there's quite a bit of discussion that was generated because of this card, because this is pretty much word for word minus the Shikenja caveat, or the restriction of being only playable by a Shikenja. Word for word is pretty much Milk of the Poppy and a Game of Thrones card. And they also have similar card effects. Blanking effects are very common in FFG games, apparently. And some people, like, were kind of disheartened. It is a little boring, I'll admit it. You know, of effect, especially to preview. I mean, I would expect, honestly, this sort of effect to be in a box set, and once I start thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense. It prevents power creep. They want a core set to have durability throughout, have playability. They want it to be enduring. They want people to always have to be able to purchase a core set and have value out of it. Depending on what's being played. So they don't want to invalidate it just because they print new powerful cards. This kind of blanking effect helps that, keep that value, right? And if they print a really powerful personality or something like that, well, a core set card can neutralize it. And it still retains its military and political skill. It just blanks it except for traits. So it remains to be seen whether or not that will be as powerful as Milk of the Poppy in my eyes, to be honest. One, it's only playable by Shikenja, which a good fair number of clans should be able to do, at least, especially over time. They'll as time goes on, there'll be more Shikenja printed. But it remains to me like whether or not, because traits like cavalry trait and Bushi, we don't have a whole list of all the traits that they'll print. But if cavalry is going to have effects printed for it, like they've said, like events specifically, then it will still be valid. And this doesn't blink traits. So your guys will still have some usability, whereas in Game of Thrones they really don't, because they're pretty much just consistent of, to my knowledge of Game of Thrones, I'm not a deep meta. I played the game a little bit, but only in casual. So, but to my knowledge, traits aren't used as heavily as in this game, perhaps. So Yeah, it will probably be a 3 of in decks like Phoenix decks, like here. Like this would be a 3 of. You can expect it, but and it will also don't depends on how easy it is to get rid of attachments too. So because this is an attachment. But for the spell card that they previewed, kind of boring. I really wish they would have done a little bit more interesting of a spell, perhaps. They also show us a couple items. So we learn about the biggest thing we learned here was a lot of the cards, the card types, and little things with the card types. So they show us the Ancestral Datio, which is a one fate cost, two military skill item or attachment, for that matter, plus 0 political skill. Ancestral, which says when attached card leaves play, return this card to your hand. That's also a mechanic that's very from Game of Thrones. Only in that one, attachments I believe automatically go back to your hand, and they actually have to print an effect that says no, it actually goes into the discard pile. Where in this, they go into the discard pile unless they have the ancestral. So I kind of like that better because it means that there's certain powerful items or certain items will be more powerful because of the ability to recur them, especially since personalities are coming into play and leaving play. So it retains a little bit more value, especially for one fate cost. It's pretty good, and it's also restricted, which we've seen before on the other attachments they've previewed, which is no more than 2 restricted attachments per character. So like your guy can only have 2 swords or 1 sword and 1 armor, presumably. Um, anything really restricted. We see a number of things. They play a character from hand in his, although there's kind of a dispute here or kind of a funny thing because FFG does this. I know I went on a rant last week about the Tagashi Initiate. But this is with the understanding that like, in the cards there was this, at least in my perception, there's an issue. With the preview articles, it's well known. They quite frequently make these little mistakes. Like I really don't know why. It's just something that always happens. Every single preview article has something little thing it seems, and this is kind of a big thing. They show us the character, which is the Seeker of Knowledge. Yeah, Seeker of Knowledge. Which is 2 fake cost Phoenix character with 0 military, 2 political, Courtier, Shikenja, and Air. While this character is attacking, or 1 glory too. Sorry, I forgot the glory. While this character is attacking, the contested ring gains the air element. Well, element. If the character wins the conflict as an attacker, you may choose which ring effects to resolve. Overall, this is a powerful card. Some people were saying that you resolve both rings. I think that depends highly upon what is in the mechanics, because we haven't seen the actual wording on whether or not you can actually claim 2 rings in one battle. But still, the option to choose between 2 or just add the error, which gives you honor or causes them to lose honor, if I remember right, that's pretty powerful. Like, pretty strong, really. Uh, Especially since it's only 2 fate costs. But we also learned when playing a character in hand that you can place faith on them. Now, how much fate? They say 1 fate in the article. That could be a wording issue. They say because Alex is able to place an additional fate at this time, or to place additional fate on her at this time. So yeah, I would think that so you can place additional fate. You can pay up to as much, I would assume, by that wording. But makes it interesting playing characters from the hand is a interesting surprise tactic. Obviously, I think we're gonna see Ninja. That's how Ninja almost all Ninja are probably gonna be from the conflict deck, as a side like tangent. But it is interesting because it makes the Dynasty phase a little less obvious. You're not portraying as much information, right? How many cards you have is still as equally relevant because with 1 or 2 fate you can play a guy that can swing a battle. And honestly, I would be interested once we start seeing more conflict cards, what the distribution, if the distribution is different, per cost because this character has a really relevant ability, especially if you're playing an honor deck. And 2 for 2, which is pretty standard. It just makes me wonder if they're going to be cheaper or more expensive, or how that's going to differ, or if it's going to differ at all. So yeah, we'll see some more items. They play an event for shame, which I was talking about. Which here it is. Zero fake cost event. Has action during a conflict. If you control a participating card of your character, choose a participating character controlled by your opponent. Your opponent must select one, dishonor the chosen character, or bow it. So that's pretty good, I would say. Participating. So the wording here is also important because this is something that was pointed out to me. So you have for shame here, which I'll bring up again. Shouldn't exit out. So for shame says participating character controlled by your opponent, right? And you have to choose a participating courtier character. And if you look up Masahiro, which we will find right here, which is a 3 fake cost Phoenix Shikenja, or Phoenix character, unique, 3 military skill, 2 political skill, Shikenja fire, he has 2 glory, and the action, during a fire conflict, bow this character, choose a participating character with a printed cost 2 or lower, discard that character. So, during a conflict, bow this character leads me to believe, and it was pointed out that it doesn't disclaim that he has to be in the conflict. He doesn't have to be participating in the conflict, so he could do that from home, or the home state. I think that's what they call it, the home. He's not in battle. He doesn't have to be in the battle, which is interesting because a lot of characters will live and breathe, or live or die in playability because of that, because whether or not where they will be able to play battles. So if I don't have to commit him to a battle, right, just have a fire conflict going on, that's really good. Especially especially with, like, we don't know. It's unlikely that they're going to have any sort of movement, but they're going to have effects that switch rings around. Maybe I would assume that there would probably be some sort of effects that move battles around to different provinces or something, even if it's just the one. Like, you can't, it will be different than the old game, because in the old game you had a lot of movement because there was one battle at each province. That's not the case in this. There's one battle that you choose, whether or not that will be switched to a different battle. Those kind of effects are possible within this framework. So, yeah, we mostly saw a lot of cards. We didn't really learn a whole lot of new stuff. We learned about the honor and dishonor thing. We saw our first card that loses honor, I believe. I believe this is the first card. Bonsai, it's a 0 cost event. Has action during conflict. Choose a participating character. Again, the participant have to be in the battle. That character gets 2 military skill until the end of the conflict. You may lose 1 honor to resolve this ability twice, maximum 1 per conflict. That's pretty good. Plus 4 force for 1 honor. That's fair trade. So, but I'm pretty sure that's the first time we've like seen a full bleed, because they had a assassination card which was kind of cut off at half that we didn't see the entire thing. So yeah, and they also said that they're done with the general mechanics previews. So moving into it, I'm pretty sure they might take a week off, but I'm pretty sure they're going to keep up with the weekly schedule when they do resume it. And they had an AMA, like a Facebook live stream AMA type thing, or people tweeted in questions. I wasn't able to make it, and I haven't really seen it. So anything that they disclosed during that, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at it. Oh, we also learned that when you break a province, you turn it sideways. You turn it 180 degrees to indicate that it's broken, which is kind of a small thing, and you discard the option discarding face down. Yeah, so you can discard cards in provinces when we learn that. Yeah. So overall, not much. It's interesting. It's good to finally start seeing cards. to start reviewing them. We'll go, of course, over all the cards that we saw here when we go over to the respective clans. More than likely, at some point, I'm going to do a review of each clan's card set, whether that's during the clan previews if they have them, or at some other point in time. But yeah, just because I want to see more of the cards in the card pool. So yeah. So moving on to our next topic, or our primary main topic for the evening. 1 second. None of this will be in the audio version, by the way, like the drinks and things. So, moving on to our main topic. Going first. Now, this was a question that was posed to me by a viewer, and I decided, well, why not? We can do it. Going to the question. Just give me 1 second there. Actually, pull up the question itself so I can get it right. So it was done. I want to credit the person who. So it was submitted by Rion, if I'm pronouncing that right. And they wanted to hear about two topics they want to hear my opinions on, which is the economic balance between going first and second, and planning power spikes for turns where you will be the first player, or odd versus even turns. And I felt that would kind of fit in with this week. I figured, now that we've learned, we've pretty much seen everything we can see at this point about the general mechanics concerning the conflict phase, and we have a pretty reasonable idea about generally how bringing out personalities and initiative and those kind of things are going to work. That we can discuss some things now. As far as the balance is, like whether or not one is better than the other going first, there's no answer to that. One, we don't have any like enough cards to make that determination. And I think it will be largely dependent upon the meta whether or not going first or going second will be better. But more or less, I think it's also dependent upon your deck. I think certain clans are predispositioned to go first, and certain clans are predispositioned to go second. And the clans that there's a couple things that I started thinking about when going first that become immediately relevant. One, if you're going first, so the game, they say that the game is going to be won in 3 to 6 turns, right? So that means that if you go first on turn 1, you will go first on turn 1, turn 3, turn 5, and turn 7 in every odd after that, right? Unless you play a card effect, which we've already seen one, which I'll get to here in a second. 2, if you go first and you're playing an equal amount of guys during your dynasty phase, or making an equal amount of actions, because you can also play actions, although we haven't seen too much. We've seen them from holdings, like things like staging ground, which I'll go into. I'll show you here in a second, or I'll talk about here in a second. But if you're making two equivalent actions, you're purchasing a character, playing some sort of action, and you're making an equal number as to your opponent, you will have the first opportunity to pass, which will yield you 1 fate going in. So that means you can technically spend 1 fate more than you would normally be able to spend if you were not purchasing that many extra people. You can spend more of your fate, essentially. So that means if you're going first, do you spend that extra fate to leave that guy out for an extra turn or two? My thought is that you can't. That based upon that, you may be able to. The second thing I'm thinking, or the third thing I'm thinking about going first generally, what will momentum look like coming back? Because there's like this capsize effect that I'm noticing. So let's say we purchase 2 characters, and we swing in, we fight. We swing in with 1 character, and that character gets killed because of Masahiro's effect, which we just showed you. The Phoenix Shikenja that can cause a person to be discarded. It's a fire. And then I swing in with a political. Or then you swing in with your political action. You have 2 guys, right? You win that engagement. Straighten a guy. Or even you just win an engagement, right? And the personality that I have is bowed. Now you've won 1 battle and you win the Imperial favor. Which means for your chosen battle or conflict, either military or political, you're going to receive +1 to all your guys. For every two guys is basically worth 1 fate. Not only that, but you will have any fate that you had stored over from the previous turn. So when you're planning on going first, or when you're building your deck, because I'm pretty sure in the bonsai article that we have, or the conflict, the previous articles, the conflicts of Rikugan, going first was randomly determined before you drew cards or saw personalities. But regardless, when you make that decision, right, to go first, when you're building your deck and you're sitting down at a game and you're making that decision, you need to be able to plan, okay, what's this going to be coming back at me if I'm playing them, and that will be dependent upon clan. If a clan like Crab, for instance, which seems to be predispositioned towards going second, is going to be coming back at you twice as strong, well, not twice as strong, but like stronger than they were in the first turn, then you need to plan accordingly. Maybe you don't want to go first in that situation. Or if you're playing, a clan that's predispositioned that your decks, that's what you want to do. You want to blitz. You want to attack early. You need to plan accordingly for that sort of capsize effect. You either need to be able to gain the favor and be prepared to suffer the possible repercussions of them spending their fate. If they're playing Dragon, for instance, with the let's go into our Mager here so I can talk about cards. So if they're playing the Seeker of Enlightenment, for instance, and they're playing Dragon, and they have a 2 fate cost character, Seeker of Enlightenment, 1 military strength, 1 political strength, monk tattooed, 0 glory, and has traits. This character gets +1 military skill and +1 political skill for each fate on an unclaimed ring. So that means on the second turn, if they're going second and they get past initiative on the second turn, they're going to get at minimum 1 fate. Because there's going to be, unless there's effects at play that allow you to fight all 5, claim all 5 rings, as it were, they're going to be gaining that extra fate, plus on top of the Imperial Favor if they have it, plus on top of any other effects like from the Togashi Initiate, which we talked about last week. So that's the kind of thing you got to think about when planning your go first, or when you're building your deck and planning on going first, in my mind. The advantages, though, is early disruption, right? That's the advantage. The advantage in every single card game to date has been going first. In the old L5R, going first, clans hinged around it, like I had said in a previous cast. Clans hinged around lion. If me as a lion player, like me going first, if my clan went second, right, my deck did dramatically worse. My entire design philosophy of my clan, right, not only just in deck building, but what the designers were giving me was hinged around the idea that I was going first as a player, during games against, unless it was during a mirror matchup. So but now it's random. So who goes first? Who goes second? What do you want to be? And that's the decision you got to make. But the momentum here is kind of even more so. So you need to plan that when you plan your thing. So I think in the first, so let's break down like the minimum, like assuming that nobody that there's not minimum, but there's just minimum resistance, right? We can honestly expect if we do pretty well, or on course for victory, to take out 1 province in the first turn, right? At best, I would think. maybe two, you know, if you're exceptional. But like as far as I've seen, I haven't seen anything that makes me think that you know taking two provinces is going to be an easy thing on the first turn. Now that also makes me expect that I'll probably be able to take one as an attacker. I'll probably be able to take one province on the second turn, right? And then maybe at best I'll be able to take two on the third turn. But I'm thinking that more commonly, because of just the way the force ratios are, you know, the force pumps and those sorts of things, that might not be as easy. Because yeah, we have Bonsai, this card here, which allows us, which will be a card if you're playing going first, is definitely a card you probably want to. Let me find it here. Let's see here, so I can read it to you. Or the Bonsai. So the zero fate cost event that allows you to gives you +2 military skill and up to twice if you lose an honor. So you can get up to +4, right? Or if you're playing Wandering Yonin or Wandering Ronin, which was right there. It's 3 fate cost military character, or 2 military skill, 2 political skill, Bushi Ronin, 0 glory, action. During a conflict, remove 1 fate from this character. It gets +2 military skill, +2 political skill until the end of the conflict, limited twice per conflict. Right? So, he's a big swing character. He can go up to, what, 6 force? Just all by himself. So, he's a character that you want to plan to bring out on like turn 4 or whenever you're having the initiative. So planning initiative with so the first turn though, like as I was going back to the original thing, you're going to be able to take out at best like turn 1, right? It seems to me that it stands to reason that you can actually benefit a little bit more in some cases if you claim different rings, right? Like bowing a character or removing a fate from a character actually becomes a lot more potent in the earlier turns as opposed to later turns. That may not be true, obviously. There's effects and things that we don't know everything, but it would stand to reason that you know if you're planning on blitzing, that's the sort of effect that you would like to have, right? Is disrupting, right? I'm also wanting to have effects that straighten you. This is going to lead me into like the faction. So let's target a faction. I think there's going to be one faction that we've seen so far, based on the cards we've seen so far, that will be the Blitz faction, quote unquote. And I think that's Unicorn. So what makes me say that? Well, in the first preview, we saw this card right here, Breakthrough. Zero cost event, Unicorn event. Reaction, after the resolution of your first conflict phase, as the attacking player, if that conflict broke a province, immediately declare your second conflict for that phase. That's a huge card. Huge. Because you get to not only attack. Now, you may not be able to break that second province, and I think first turn you probably won't, largely. Because you'll be expending resources, right? But you'll be able to claim a second ring, which gives you that extra favor, right? Which is I really want to emphasize because that's huge, especially going into the second turn. You'll be able to have chances to kill a second character, right? If you have a kill action on one of your or I say kill, that's an old way I've used it, but a removal action, something that removes character personality on board, right? If you have a character that does that on the unicorn side. It's one influence too, so whatever, I mean, we haven't really seen the rules, the full rules for influence, how they're going to be splashable and things. But one of the cards that, or you know, whoever gets to splash this card, Breakthrough, will definitely have an advantage for determining go first. The second card that makes me think they're going to be a Blitz faction is up here. 1 second here. The way the Unicorn Philosophy card. If I can find it here, let me pull it up. But it's a one of their way of philosophy cards. the ones with the really nice water ink or whatever they call it. Was it ink? Is it ink art or oil art? I'm not an artist, so where is it? Way of the Unicorn. So it's a zero cost event. Way of the Unicorn, philosophy, traded, has interrupt when you would pass the first player token, keep it instead. So you pass the first player token at the end of the turn, if that wasn't explained earlier. So that makes me think that okay, you want to go first with them. You want to keep that initiative because then you'll be able to reap the benefits of the second turn as well. So that capsize effect gets more. So that says to me blitz, right? You can go in, play whatever's in your hand to disrupt, break a province because you only need to break one. Attack again, bow another character, remove a fate from a character so he gets discarded from play during the fate phase. Now they're down a personality plus whatever they lost. You gain the favor. You're getting more force. You keep the initiative, right? That sort of effect. Another thing that makes me say it, that is a really key effect for anybody, really, and this is a standard effect. Ready effects. So Border Rider is a unicorn personality, 2 fate, 2 military skill, 1 political skill. Bushi, cavalry, 1 glory. Has an action ready this character. So that's when you stand him up, when you straighten him, or untap him, or whatever you want to call it. Right. Ready this character. That's a strong effect because not only can you attack in a military conflict, right? But because that's what the skill is a 2 as opposed to the 1. So you're probably going to want to put this person into military. But you're going to be able to straighten them to defend because they do have a political skill there, right? Or after everything's said and done, right? You've done your military, you've done your political attacks because you've played breakthrough. You could stand them up and then gain that extra favor because Imperial favor is counted by the number of rings that you've won, right? Plus standing characters. If that's a big whether or not that's good in the beginning, I don't know. I don't think so because I think there will only be it'll either be a trade in my opinion, right? Or it will be. Now, what are you giving up by going first turn, though? As we were talking about the capsize effect, but we're also talking about information, which leads me into going second. So, what is a clan that I think is going to go second? And what is going second? What am I thinking about when I'm going second? So, what I'm thinking about when going second is first I'm thinking about I'm getting information, and I'm going to want that information. There's a lot that you can tell a person by what personality you play first, by what ring you go after and claim first. That tells me about your deck and the strategies. Maybe not now because we've only seen a limited card pool, but as the time go on, you're going to play these decks and you're going to play them over and over and over again, right? And you're going to learn. There's going to be certain strategies that emerge, and there are certain initial openings, just like chess, right? Now, it's a little different because there's more diversity in initial openings, but the same concept is true. The opening tells me a large part about your strategy. People typically open by putting the pawn out. If you don't know how to play chess, then I don't know what to do for you. Go Google it. If you play a pawn out in the center, that's a standard opening, right? But there's other openings that you can do that inform me about what's going on, about what your decks do, in strategy in chess it's your opponent, and that will be true here. It also gives me an opportunity to counterplay you, right, through either just intimidation. So if you come out with this Border Rider character, and I come out with Asawa Masahiro, which is the Phoenix Clan guy, the three costed Phoenix Clan guy, a Bowser guy, or yeah, a Bowser guy. Discard. I bow to discard a guy, or you come out with this Phoenix Clan character, one fake cost Solemn Scholar, 1 military, 1 political skill, Shikenja Earth Scholar glory, or 1 glory. during a conflict, if there is a Earth ring, or if the Earth ring is in your claimed pool, choose an attacking character by that character. Right? If that character is in play, don't you can't announce Earth if you're going to potentially lose. So depending on the play, you can just intimidate them into not doing certain actions. Or if you have a card that outright removes them. You can also play control effects. That's one of the things I think is important about this week's news article, or the preview article during the conflict, was that there's an action window there. So you can play pacifism on a character, right? Which means that they may not be able to. So you're going to look at their board, right? And they go first. They have two guys. They bring out two guys, maybe three. Two of them military, one's political, let's say. Or one of them has the ability to go in political. So now what you do is you have an option. You can either cut their military in half, right? Or take out their strongest guy, pacify that person so they can go in the military. Or you can go for the character who can go in the political but is also military. Which actually makes no sense to me now that I'm thinking about it. Just, yeah, you go after the military guy, you cut down their military guy. So now they can attack, but if they only attack with one guy during the trade, during the conflict, there's a high likeliness that you can remove that guy or bump that guy off or send him home. You win the battle. You claim that Earth ring. Now they can't attack at all. Right? So, momentum is another thing which you discussed when going first, but that's a big deal. Right? This Otomo Courtier, which just happened to be above pacifism, is going to be pretty strong in normal decks, right? But it can be attacked. So you one fake cost, two political skill, dash for military, Courtier Imperial, one glory. This character cannot participate in conflicts as an attacker against a player that controls Imperial favor. But it's a cheap one drop character, right? That gives you two political skill. That's strong for the first turn, especially if you're playing defensively, because you're going to want to bring out as much defense as you can, right, for cheapest, because you can then save that money, bring out characters or play actions and do dumb stuff during your when you gain the initiative, and then push in to do damage. Maybe at that point you break a province, right, or do whatever your deck's designed to do, right? Because you'll have more resources, you'll have more characters. Hypothetically, you'll have the option to have Imperial favor. So there is a trade. I mean, there are cards that you have to think about this capsize effect, and is the what I'm saying about when you're thinking about the trades, not just the information, but like also the swings, right? Because there's more economy that you can save up between each turn, right? How much fate are you going to spend on the first turn? That's, I think, the big question that we don't know because we haven't seen the full card pool yet. And that will determine a lot. But I think Phoenix will have a very strong ability to go. I mean, like, honestly, because they have, like, in this week, they gave us they have a Sawa Masahiro, a the 3 fake cost, 3 military skill, 2 political, Shikenja Fire, 2 glory. Action during a fire conflict, bow this character. Choose a participating character with a printer cost 2 or lower. Discard that character. Right? That's strong for defense. And it's also strong for attacking too. Right? And they have the Shiba Peacemaker. Sorry, that was the big character. The 1 fake cost, 4 military skill, 1 political skill, Bushi, 1 glory. This character cannot participate in conflicts as an attacker. So he's obviously, you bring him out, they're not attacking the military. Well, they will, because he is only a 1 drop, and he is vulnerable to those. He's within that 2 fate that they have for for vulnerable characters, for actions that remove people. But Yeah, another thing is like you have to think about tempo. You have to think about the tempo of the game because that's the big deal. Tempo's in every game. In this game, it's really acute because the things fall off, and that's going to affect tempo, right? So if you come out really aggressively with no fate on any of your guys, then those guys are going to go away at the end of turn, and that's going to affect your tempo. That's a huge tempo drop for you because you have to replace those guys. Now, if you're coming out with two guys with one fate on them, so that means they're going to last at least for one turn, right? That's and they cost somewhere in the area of 4 to 5. You retain two fate for the next turn. Let's say, cause let's assume this 7 is the average, right? You pass first. Now you have 3, so you can afford to play a card like Fallen in Battle, a 1 cost fate event reaction. After you win a military conflict by 5 or more skill, choose a participating character, discard that character. Maximum 1 per conflict. This is very similar also to this card right here. Is also very similar to Put to the Sword, which is a Game of Thrones card, which is pretty standard. So you attack and you kill a guy or a woman, kill a character. So it's the this sort of capsizing effect means that you're gonna think about, okay, how much fate am I gonna come out with? What am I gonna purchase within the second turn, right? What am I gonna want to purchase? What are my goals gonna be during the second turn? And then you're gonna push in the third turn, and then so as the games go on, you're gonna have a more of a clearer idea about where your deck is gonna function, right? And I'm not breaking down the exact math because honestly, I'm not very good at that. Like like doing advanced calculations and analysis like that. I'm just kind of going through what I'm thinking about and what I'm looking at. There's gonna be clans that are predispositioned also to going to either first or second, right? They're going to be able to choose either, and I think those are clans that are going to immediately, at least in the core set, going to be really highly functional. So let me find a dragon, for instance, right? Dragon's got some pretty cheap, pretty reasonable characters, but they get better if they go second, right? But they also have characters that are strong blitz characters. So they have Doom Shikenja, a 1 fate cost dragon character with 3 military skill, 3 political skill, Shikenja Fire, 1 glory. It's limited, so you can only play it once. Limited strictly says no more than 1 limited card can be played by each player each round. So you can only play 1 limited. And it says you cannot place Fate on the character when it is played from one of your provinces. That's a strong blitz card. It's also a good defense card too, to be honest with you. But that's a strong blitz card. You just bring that Shikenja out, go trucking into province just to disrupt things, just to play actions. Miramoto Prodigy, another great military card. 2 fate cost, 3 military skill, 2 political. Bushi Duelist, 1 glory. Has the one, or while character is attacking alone, your opponent cannot declare more than 1 defender. Right. So, like even if you're expecting to get the character cacked in that battle, like they're going to play an effect from their hand to remove the character. There's nothing on board, for instance. That's still not bad because you're still removing a card from hand. So they had to pay honor for that, right? Right, unless they were only drawing 1 card, in which they're, sacrificing a potential honor gain, or yeah, potential card. Yeah, we'll go into breakdown in between honor and drawing and that sort of stuff as time goes on. I would like to see more drawing effects before we do any of that, though. So yeah, those are my thoughts on going first and going second, and the general placement between. I think, in a summary, obviously blitzes are going to want to go first, but they're going to have to plan for the cap side, for the this rebound effect that you're seeing in game, and if they're going to be hard blitzing, they need to plan and play accordingly to make sure they win the game on the turn of initiative, because they'll have the greatest effect. That's the only final thing I would add about that. So if you want to win, You want to win on turn 3 or 5. Like that's your ideal turn because then you'll have the most going for you. Um, and if you're going second, you have a strong advantage to control out your characters. You know, for everything from playing effects to getting the first action in a battle, unless they have like some sort of sneak attack effect that they come out with. The ability to have more fate for when you actually do decide, because that capsize effect. If you can defend cheaply and easily, you pacify, you play your Otomo Courtier first turn. I mean, that's 3 fate right there. It's not too bad. And like we don't even know if there's going to be anything that reduces this cost or makes this better. So now you have like what, 4 fate? Let's just say that these are the only 2 cards that you played. The Otomo Courtier and the pacifism. You save, let's say if you're getting 7, because 7 is quote unquote the standard that we were thinking, then you would save 4 fate. You pass first, so you'd actually save 5 fate for the next turn. These are the things I'm thinking about, and these are the going to play into that forward thinking skill that comes into the game. So yeah, okay. So that's our segment on strategy. Hope I did well for my first time. I've never missed, sitting down thinking about a strategy segment. I'm not an amazing. I probably should have disclaimed at the beginning. I'm not like like top tier level player or anything. I do okay for myself in most card games, but I'm not. I don't horribly suck, but I'm not amazingly great. I'm pretty average, I think. But hope that helped answer questions and start discussions, hopefully. And yeah, so let's go. I'm going to go ahead and go into our post show. Thank you if you are listening to this on audio uh, or watching the edited version. Don't forget you can submit your comments to L5R destinycast@gmail.com. If you want to email me, you could go visit our Facebook page, Destiny Has No Secrets. You can Facebook me at L5R DestinyCast. And online, I'm known as Spoonfunk. My name is Doug Quinn. And thank you for watching. This is Destiny Has No Secrets. And for anybody who's streaming, let's go ahead and go to the post show and chit chat. Second here. Give me a second. Did I lose stream? I lost stream, didn't I? Did I lose stream? Stream offline. No. Motherfucker. Oh no. You're an asshole. Motherfucker.